Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to the Hearthstone Weekly Show. Now, just before we start, I didn't make a video earlier this week, and the main reason for that is because I didn't really have something that was like a small video and didn't just call for its own weekly topic. But I am thinking of a new idea, which I would love to hear you guys' opinions, so put it in the comments after the video, and I'll read through all of those things, and if enough people ask for it, then I'll go ahead and do it, which is a sort of news thing. It wouldn't be every week, probably, I mean, it depends on how much news there would be, but maybe every 2 weeks, going over all the Hearthstone news, because, I mean, a lot of people don't follow it as closely as I do, so sort of compressing all the Hearthstone news that is relevant, and also a slight discussion on each point for probably about a 10-minute show. And that was an idea I've been tinkering around with. I was thinking of doing on this week, but there wasn't that much news, and I'm just going to put it into the first 5 minutes of this video instead. But I would sort of love to do a show like that, and I'd love to hear your opinions on that. The other one I wanted to hear opinions on was a sort of, if I did news every 2 weeks, then every other week would be a show match, because I am in a team now. I do playtest with teammates, and I can get these recorded from both points of view, edit it up, get hands, like get any show matches. It wouldn't always involve me. I could commentate on my two teammates playing, or if I'm in an actual game, then do live commentary and edit it out, so you also see my opponent's hand afterwards, or do post-production commentary and things like that. I can do that kind of stuff, and it's good practice for me, but it's also something that some of you might want to see. So if you have any sort of opinions on that, I'd love to hear whether you guys actually would like to see that kind of thing with news, and also with any show matches, so put it in the comments. Last thing as far as news goes, the More Hearthstone group, which it's a Facebook group, I'll put it in the description, but recently me and my team moved over to their TeamSpeak from the Mana Grind one, because Mana Grind is basically dead at the moment. So we moved over there. Some really nice guys. It's a European-based Facebook group, but NA players also come on there from time to time. I'll put the IP for the TeamSpeak and also their Facebook group in the description. It's a pretty active community at the moment. There's usually about 10-15 people on there at once. So by all means hop over there. I think it's a really nice community, and it's something I want to take part in sort of more in the future. But anyway, moving on to the actual show from my 3-minute introduction. It's the longest introduction I think I've done in a long time. As for a slight bit of news before I get on to the actual subject topic of this particular weekly, the official pricing for Naxramas was announced. Now, I predicted this about a month ago as 3k gold. It's 2.8. I'm quite smug about this, but anyway, it's 2.8 gold, 2.8k gold, not 2.8 gold, so 2,800. First wing is free only for the first month. If you miss the event launch, then you'll have to pay for the first wing after a while, and each wing will be 700, I think. Yeah, each wing will be 700. Now, there's also, you can buy the whole thing on launch for like $20, around that price. I don't know what the exact conversions are, but it's $20, probably about £15 or something. And once the event is over, so once the first month is over and you actually have to pay for the first wing, then that price jumps up to $25 and probably about £18 and 23 or 4 euros or something like that. So the Naxramas pricing is actually fairly fair. Haha. Anyway, but the actual Naxramas pricing is quite nice. It's not too cheap, so you can get it instantly, but it also means that people hoarding gold for about a month will be able to get it. And if you're not hoarding gold, then you can just, I don't know, grind wings. Like in the first 2 weeks, you can get the 700 gold for the second wing, and then you can pay for one of the wings with like $5 or something, and then just get the gold for the last wing. So it's like, it's pretty easy to actually get the gold for it, but you do need to put some actual investment into it, which means that enough people are going to buy it, so it's profitable for Blizzard, which means they make more of these, which is good. The one complaint I do have about the Naxramas system is that the gold cards were also announced how those get, and it's not from finishing heroics. You get card backs for that, I think, but it's you have to craft them. You have to craft the golden cards, which I think is a terrible idea, because it means that 99% of people not going to get them. Like, I'm not going to get those either. The only people who are going to get them are people who put hundreds of dollars into the game worth of packs, because they have all that extra dust lying around. So it's really annoying. It means that less people get them. You feel less attached to getting the golden cards like you would do if golden cards came from heroics. I would spend a lot of time doing heroics just to get the golden cards. Like, I'm just saying that. And I think that would have been more rewarding for a lot more people, but oh well. They decided to go with the crafting thing. As long as they're consistent with it, it'd be nice, because there's so many different ways of doing things now. Like, you craft Gilbin and Elite Torn Chieftain, but then the golden ones are events, and then there's now expert soulbound cards that you craft half of, but not the other half. It's confusing. But anyway, so that's all the basic news about Naxramas we got for this week, and release, by the looks of it, is looking to be on the 15th, or the Tuesday afterwards, which is the 21st, I think, yeah. 15th or 21st, which is coming up soon, so I'm really looking forward to that stuff. But anyway, on to the actual show. So for this week, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the things that need to change with Naxramas, sort of how the game itself needs to change with Naxramas. The Naxramas set, we don't know the whole thing yet. So far it's looking pretty awesome, and I'm going to do a set review on that when it actually comes out. However, what I'm just going over is what is wrong with the current game, and what needs to change with Naxramas, and also future adventures, since these are looking to release every 4 months or 5 months or so. So with future adventures, we'll need to change over time to make the game better. Keep in mind that I actually love Hearthstone. I mean, obviously I've been doing coverage on it for over a year now, so I love Hearthstone. I just think that there's a couple things they need to fix about the game to make it a lot more fun to actually play. Now, the first thing I'm going to go over here is burst combos. I'm not just talking about Miracle. I mean, alright, if I go through the current metagame, you'll see a trend here, which is really annoying. So we've got Miracle, based around an 18 damage burst combo along with Gadget Sound with Leroy. Handlock does giant stuff, but most of the time, in a lot of games where it's running out of gas, it just kills you for 20 damage burst combo with Leroy, Power Overwhelming, Faceless. Druid always kills you on turn 9, basically, if they get any foothold with Force Ninja Saboteur combo. Every rush deck plays Leroy. Let's see, what else have we got here? Zoo, Soulfire, Doomguard, Leroy if they're playing it. Usually they don't need Leroy for burst. Freeze Mage, a deck entirely based around killing you in 2 turns. Control Warrior usually ends the game with a 12 damage burst, although Control Warrior doesn't normally. I will admit that. Control Warrior doesn't normally do the bursty thing. It's a lot more fair deck to play against, and it's actually a lot more fun to play against because of that. But that's just the basic ones that come off the top of my head, and it gets worse from there. Mage, Ice Lances, Frostbolts, Fireballs, they often kill you from 15 without you being able to do anything. It takes out a lot of interaction. Hunter will usually kill you from 10. It's getting absurd, don't you think? Like, I almost had a montage prepared for this, because just today, I mean, at the moment I'm doing a lot of laddering. I'm kind of going for Legend, but not that quickly. I'm at rank 3 right now, and I probably should be laddering more than I am. But I'm just sort of going through the paces here, and I'm trying out the new Crusher Shaman deck with all the Earth Elementals and things like that. Playing a Shaman versus Shaman. We both have exactly the same board. He Lightning Storms my board, plays Leroy, Wind Fury, Rockbiter, and I die from 25. And it was actually a fun game. Like, we were actually playing a fun game. It was very, very sort of grindy, trying to get board control continuously, slowly wearing your opponent down. Those games are actually fun if you play them. But as soon as it gets to the point where it's like you're at parity, where you're just sort of fighting for board position continuously, you die, or your opponent dies out of nowhere. I mean, I'm not just complaining about it because I die to the combos a lot, because I play Druid as my main class. About 80% of my games I win from combos. Like, it's pretty ridiculous at the moment the way combos work. Now, how they fix this, I have no clue. Like, I don't know how you fix this. I mean, you could add stuff that, like, prevents people from using charge. I think a good fix, at least for a lot of things, although it does mean Force of Nature Saboteur is still a problem, but a good fix is making Leroy untargeted by spells, because then it means you can't do Power Overwhelming combos, you can't do Shadow Step combos. It takes a lot of the annoying out of the card. It's a bit of a problem right now. It's not just Miracle, it's everything. And it's so bursty right now, it actually takes a lot of fun out of the game and a lot of skill out of the end game. There are games when you're winning in pretty much every single fashion and you just die. And the other problem with the way the metagame is right now is that you have to play like... This happens a lot as a Druid, especially, though it does happen less so with Handlocks, you're drawing so many cards. It happens with Shaman a lot as well, where you have to run these combos because it makes the deck more powerful. But then you run the risk of, like, turn 5, your hand is Force of Nature, Savage Roar, Innervate, Wild Growth or something. And you have nothing you can play. And this actually happens a lot, but you can't just remove the combos, because the combos are dead in your hand until you kill them. You can't just remove the combos, though, because they're too powerful. So you end up with these weird decks that are way more inconsistent than you'd like, but you need them because they're powerful. It's annoying. It's really annoying to play against. It adds way too much variance to the game. It also means that top decks matter a bit too much at the moment. You can top deck lethal a lot. You can be winning and your opponent has 2 cards in their hand, they top deck, and it's like, hey, Leroy, Shadow Step, and they had no business winning that game. They had absolutely no business winning that game, and that happens with Druid as well. I've actually done this to people where I'm so far behind and they have like 20 life, 3 cards in my hand, and I top deck an Innervate, and I'm like, you actually, like, you feel sorry for him. You do Force of Nature, and then Savage Roar, Innervate, Roar, and you just kill them from 20. And it's like, could you have played around it? No, you couldn't. It's things like that. It makes the game less fun at the moment. I think it's something they need to fix. Especially with Naxramas, I think that the format's going to get faster because the power level of cards is going up, so it's going to be even more of an annoying sort of set. But with Naxramas, I think you're not going to notice it as much simply because it's a new format, so people are going to be really, really excited to build new decks. I know I'm probably going to disappear for about a week building new decks when it comes to Naxramas, so there's a lot more stuff to do, and that's what I'm really looking forward to with these adventures. A lot more stuff to do, a lot more things you can actually do with your decks, and you won't be saying, oh, I can't build anything new, which is what's currently going on because this metagame's 3.5 months old. But anyway, so burst combos, that's my first point. Second point, Warlock. Now, this is actually something I didn't really think about until earlier today, which is the Warlock class is not a class, it's a hero power. That's a serious problem. If you look at every single class, if you look at the standard decks for every single class, they'll have majority class cards with some supporting neutral cards. And I think that's correct, because you need a reason to be playing that class. Like, Priest use Cabal Shadow Priest, Arcanine, Circle of Healing, things like that. Thought Steal. Mages have all their Burn, and they have Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mana Worm. Druids have all their Choose One stuff. Like, most classes have a lot of class cards you want to be using. Warlock, Doomguard, Flame Imp, Voidwalker, Soulfire, maybe Mortal Coil. That's Zoo. Alright, that's 5 class cards, mostly neutrals, because Mortal Coil is usually a one-over and not really. Power Overwhelming you can kind of count, though, it fills it in. So it's about 10 cards that are class-based. Go into Handlock. Siphon Soul, Soulfire, Hellfire as a 1-of maybe, or 2-of. Shadow Flame is a 1-of or 2-of depending on your Hellfire count. I think that's it. And Power Overwhelming for the combo. Really? But then, why are these decks with 20 odd neutral cards in them? It's because of the hero power. The hero power for Warlock has always been one of those things where, because the hero power is so powerful, like, the hero power is actually overpowered. The fact that the Warlock cards suck so much is what actually brings it into balance. And you could actually look at the Warlock cards, like, you could look through the Warlock cards and just thinking, that's terrible, that's really bad, there's another really, really bad card. You just keep going down the list and they just get worse. If you put the Warlock hero power in any other class, that class would instantly become the most overpowered in the game. It's just a fact. Like, 2 mana and 2 life for a card that's reusable. It's pretty good. As a card itself would be terrible, but as a hero power, it's pretty insane because you don't need to put any cards in your deck to actually do that. So that's pretty crazy. The main reason this is a problem, though, is that Warlock feels like you can't build a mid-range deck because, especially with Void Cooler coming out, you can't build a mid-range deck in Warlock, and the reason for that is because they don't abuse life tap. Zoo abuses life tap better than any other deck, I would say. And actually, Zoo and Handlock. I'd say Handlock actually uses the hero power more than Zoo because later in the game they don't, but early in the game they actually need it to work. Whereas in Zoo you use it in the late game, but not in the early game. So both of those decks abuse living hell out of life tap. And it's going to be a problem with Nax coming out because Death Rattle Zoo is going to become literally the devil. Everyone's going to hate it. And it's running off life tap, and this is something Blizzard has to think about for the rest of Hearthstone's existence, is how do they not make something broken with life tap. And that's going to be a problem for a long time. Now, I don't know what you do to life tap. I got a feeling at some point, I've got a feeling at some point the best thing you can do is probably just redesign the Warlock class if this continues to be an issue, because it's probably going to cause them a lot of headaches moving forward. The Warlock hero power is simply the most abusable in the game, and it has a habit of causing balance issues. A lot of them. And it's really close to causing huge amounts of balance issues at the moment. The only reason it isn't causing balance issues at the moment, although arguably Zoo is a little too strong for a random aggro deck, and Handlock has weird games where sometimes Handlock is actually not that good of a deck, but sometimes it just draws 2 mountains and 2 twilights and you can't win. It's pretty annoying. So those 2 decks are entirely reliant on the hero power. Now, it's a weird feeling, and I would say that it's going to cause more headaches for them if they just leave it as it is, going down, as opposed to if they have to change it. And that's something they've got to deal with, unfortunately. I think Zoo is going to be a massive issue post-Nax with all the Death Rattle stuff. And every single time they make a set with a higher power level of cards that are neutral, the Warlock is going to cause them issues again. I'm pretty sure Warlock is going to be tier 1 post-Nax because of life tap. And it's probably going to be tier 1. Warlock, at the beginning of every set, it starts at the top because of life tap. As the cards get worse, because they don't have class cards to support it, it starts to drop. Like, if you look at Alpha, Warlock was one of the most powerful classes at the top because its class cards were actually good. Like, some of them, like Summoning Portal was amazing at 3 mana. Flame Imp used to have Stealth, that was crazy. Blood Imps were nuts. Like, it was a crazy class. But then their class cards got nerfed down to match the hero power, and they were still nuts. Like, if you remember the buff times in early beta, or after the rogue nerfs in beta, there's a couple steps down here, they used to have Shadowed Sun Clerics, Dark Iron Dwarfs, things like that, so the deck was absolutely ridiculously overpowered for a time. But then as soon as they nerfed those neutral cards, they didn't have the class cards to full on, so Zoo actually dropped down a tier, whereas the rest of the decks that were relying on it just shifted their card base, because they don't have those class cards to rely on. So Warlock has this weird way of working where when Nax comes out, it's going to be tier 1 because all the stuff is way higher power level and it's all neutral, because they love neutral cards, right? So it's probably going to be tier 1. And then as Nax gets nerfed, which it probably will, it's going to drop down, and then a new adventure is going to come out, and it's going to do this for the rest of Hearthstone's lifespan, which is kind of weird for a class. So I would say they need to do something about Warlock in general. You can't just nerf life tap because the class will just fall apart. So you need to do something with Warlock in general. And I don't know what exactly. I'm going to leave that up to Blizzard. I am not a game designer, whereas they are very good at making games. But that's going to be a problem in the future from what I can tell, just because of the way free card advantage works. Now, as far as the other stuff goes, those are the 2 major points, though. Burst, life tap. Life tap is going to cause a lot of issues, by the way. It's not at the moment because of all the burst combos, but it's going to cause some issues in the future. So, burst damage, life tap, those are the 2 points. Now, the next one from here is Priest. Can you stop making Priest cards that are so finicky? Dark Cultist is Dark Cultist is a step in the right direction. Dark Cultist is a solid 3-drop. It's a solid creature that is not situational, and is actually powerful on its own. Those are 3 characteristics that most Priest cards do not share. In fact, 90% of Priest cards do not share. They are either situational as all hell, while being incredibly powerful in that situation, and utterly useless if they're not in that situation. And this is why Priest is terrible right now. Priest can literally be completely overpowered if they draw what they need to, but you will have games as Priest where you have 8 cards in your hand on turn 7 and you hero power pass. And this happens a lot. But then your opponent plays the one thing you're good against. Like, you can have double Shadow Word Death in your hand, and there's just like 4 attack creature, 4 attack creature, 4 attack creature, 4 attack creature, Ragnaros Faceless, and you're like, kill both. But then you just died from all the 4 attack creatures for the entire game. Like, it's gonna be pretty annoying. Although Priest is gonna get better after Nax, because Cultist is, again, not situational, powerful on its own, and has actually got a good effect. But the other reason is Shadow Word Death actually hits Kel'Thuzad and Big Game Hunter doesn't. So that's a big thing. But then Fugan is going to come knocking on the door, and Priest are going to be sad again. The other problems with Priest is they're a bit too combo-centric. So you get these weird games where, like, I think this was shown at DreamHack. Actually, this was shown at DreamHack the best, which was with a Maz, because he was the only priest player. Everyone knew he was going to play priest. I mean, it's a Maz. He plays priest. He's a good priest player, obviously. But anyway, he had this crazy hand where he just went, while Pyro clear the board with 1,000,000 spells. Yeah, that can happen. But imagine if he didn't have the Pyro, he would have had like 5 dead cards. And this actually happens. Like, Circle of Healing is a dead card without its combos. Like Cabal, its effect can be useless at times. So I think Cabal is strong enough at the moment because of Harvest Golem. And I don't know why people don't play it. Arcanine is actually a good card, and I think it's one of the main reasons to play Priest, because it's not really situational. Although Arcanine has this random drawback where it can just cause you to lose the game at times. These are just problems with Priest. It's really annoying. Because Priest is one of those classes I've always stayed away from, because I can't stand having... Like, I'm the kind of player who loves having a toolbox, where, like, I love having a toolbox in a deck. Like, I'll have, like, something for everything, but then they can also, like, blend into anything else. Like, if I don't have a hammer, I'll use, like, a spanner to hit it or something. Like, I love that kind of toolbox. What I can't stand is when you have, like, a bunch of electric tools that just don't do anything you don't want them to. Like, you just have, like, a bunch of electric tools that do not do anything that they're not made for. That is what Priest is. Like, you can have a hand that just does nothing because you don't have that one card that helps you. And that is terrible, terrible design for Priest. And Priest has actually got worse over time. The class has got more powerful, but they removed one of their only spells a while ago in Penance. Penance was, in hindsight, incredibly overpowered. But anyway, it was like 3 mana, deal 3, heal 3. For a removal spell. It was a good spell, and the reason it was good was because it wasn't situational. It was powerful on its own, and it did exactly what you wanted it to. Again, 3 things Priest cards do not have. Even Thoughtsteal. Like, I think this is the biggest example of why people hate playing against Priest, and why Priest players also hate playing the class sometimes. Not always. Thoughtsteal. So, you play Thoughtsteal. You draw 2 cards. In some games, it's like Big Game Hunter for the Ragnaros, and I mean, Thought Stealing Arcane Intellect is just funny. But anyway, you can like get a Big Game Hunter or maybe like a Fireball and a Flame Strike, and your opponent he has to play around Fireball and Flame Strike for the rest of the game because you might have them, and then if he doesn't, you just Flame Strike him. But then there are other times where you're like Thought Steal, double deadly poison, and this is one of the main problems with Priest, and that's why a lot of people do not play Priest, is because of how much variance is in that class. And I think that they're going to get better with Cultist. I prefer Cultist over Injured Blade Master, although you're probably going to play both, maybe. I don't know, we'll have to see post-Nax. But anyway, because Cultist doesn't rely on Circle of Healing. But then Injured Blade Master, Circle of Healing is so powerful, but then when you don't have one half and you have the other half, it's just terrible. So, like, I don't really know how they're going to fix Priest. I would say that a good way of fixing Priest over time is make them have less variance, and I think each of the class cards in each adventure is going to have less variance for Priest, and I really, really like the way they're going with this with Cultist. But that's something they need to keep on, because Priest at the moment is pretty terrible. Now, if we look at some of the other classes, Paladin. Alright, there are 2 things wrong with Paladin right now. The secrets that will suck, and way too many 4-drops. Paladin is kind of meh at the moment. There's that Calento Paladin deck, which is on the front page of Hearthstone if you go check it out, which has been doing pretty well. But that's not running secrets, and secrets is supposed to be a major thing for Paladin. The problem is that all the secrets suck, and they're adding a new one, and this is their own fault for this, because they removed the triggering on your turn thing. Now, it's just because of Hunters, because Hunter trap stacks was absurd. Basically, what would happen is if you have a misdirect out, like, you could both have misdirects and both have explosives, and you attack with an arcane, you attack with, like, no, it'd be something with, like, 5 life or something. Yeti. Misdirect, turns it over to you, misdirect, turns it misdirect, or you could, like, misdirect into explosive, into misdirect, into explosive, so you both take 2, and then he takes 4 again. It was really weird. Like, trap stacks would get absolutely insane. If you had a freezing at the end of that chain, it was just hilarious. So trap stacks were insane, so they removed that interaction. But what this did was, I mean, it made Ice Block beatable with Fatigue, which I think was actually a good change. But the other thing it did was completely screw over Paladins. Noble Sack is good on its own. Let's look at the series of secrets that were completely ruined by the trap stack change. Redemption. Eye for an eye. Eye for an eye was already terrible, but at least you could use it with weapons. Redemption. Eye for an eye. Avenge. Yes, before Avenge was even in the game, because it's Naxramas card. It's terrible now because of the way trap stack works. That's 3 secrets completely ruined by this, and Repentance is already terrible. So you have 1 secret in class, which can be ruined by Druid and Rogue hero powers. Yeah, Paladin Secrets are terrible. I know they're 1 mana, so you can't make 1 mana secrets too powerful, but for 1 extra mana in Hunter, you get Consecrate on a secret. You get Freezing Trap, which is amazing. You get Misdirection, pretty good. Snake Trap is kind of meh, but it's at least decent. It's just not good enough to see it play. And on top of that, Snipe. Yeah, that's the other secret, and that's still decent. So, you go 1 up, and some of those good. Other problem with secrets is you go 1 up from there, and you get 3 mana secrets. You're expecting them to be good. You have Ice Block, that's good. Ice Barrier is like Healing Touch. Kind of weird that Healing Touch needs to be procced, but whatever. And then you have Counterspell. It's okay. Spellbender. It's okay. Vaporize. I mean, you expect these out of 3 mana secrets. Mirror Entity. Yeah, they're all fine. They all do what you'd expect them to. Whether they're good enough to see play or not is irrelevant. But they all do what you'd expect them to for like 3 mana. They all feel like on power level. The exception of Ice Block, which feels a little overpowered for its mana cost, but whatever. So you have 2 mana secrets are good. 3 mana secrets do what you'd expect, but are not that crazy. But that's why Mage has secret interactions, because the secrets cost more. Kirantor Mage, Ethereal Arcanist. And also Duplicates coming out. Yeah, that's the other secret. But then you look at Paladin, you're just like, where did they go wrong? And the answer is the trap stack change. So, I don't know how you fix this, because you don't want to change it back, because then Hunter secrets get confusing as all hell again. So, you need to do something to the Paladin secrets, because they're all pretty much useless at this point. I mean, that's 5 class cards that are all useless, apart from 1, which can be made useless in certain situations. That's a lot of a class to be made useless. And Paladin has a lot of cards like this, which are just not good. The other problem Paladin has is a severe lack of class minions that actually are on tempo. You've got Argent Protector, which is designed for aggro. Aldor Peacekeeper is very good. I put that on, I think, 4th on my top 10 class minions. And then you've got the Guardian of Kings, that's good control. And then you've got Tyrion, good control. But there's like, Aldor is like the divide in between the two, but then the other's like on separate ballparks, which means they can do both. Like, they've always been a jack of all trades class where they can do both aggro and control, but as a result makes both weaker. The problem is, the control half has so much focused on it. You've got, look at the control half for Paladin. Lay on Hands, Avenging Wrath, Tyrion, Keeper, Equality fits both, but mostly in control. Equality Pyromancer is crazy. Consecrate is much better in control than it is in aggro, but you still play it in aggro. True Silver, much better in control, but you still play it in aggro. Now, if you look in aggro, it's basically, the main problem with Shockedin, or just aggro Paladin in general, is that the only reason to play the class is Divine Favor. That's it. That is it. True Silver, nice card, but you'd rather play that in control. It's just better in control. Consecrate, same thing as True Silver. Hammer of Wrath, same thing as True Silver. Good in aggro, better in control. Avenging Wrath, same thing as True Silver. Equality, you see where the trend is going here. So we're going down the list here, and ultimately you get to 3 cards in Paladin which are actually good in aggro over control. Divine Favor, Argent Protector, and Noble Sac. Yeah, Noble Sacrifice. Aldor Peacekeeper is actually good in both, but Aldor is actually just as good in both, because in control it lets you win control mirrors, and in aggro it lets you get around the early aggro plays and things like that. It gives you a very, very good anti-giants card and things like that. It's actually quite good. But the problem Paladin has always had is that they're supposed to be focused on both, but they're not. They're kind of leaning too much towards control, but then their control deck is just not powerful enough, so they have to lean to aggro most of the time. And at the moment they're in the control park, but they're usually in the aggro park, and it's too much on Divine Favor. So there's a lot of problems with Paladin right now. It might be fixed with Nax, so I think Divine Favor is actually getting worse with Nax because the decks are getting faster. So Paladin is another one of those classes that needs to be fixed in some way. So we've got Paladin Priest on the actual class fixing part, then we've got life tap and burst damage. Those are the sort of the first three. Now, the other thing I do want to address, and I think this is going to be the last point on this at least, is the like the Hunter Beast thing. Now, Hunter at the moment are interesting, and they're actually a tempo deck. And actually, no, there's one more point after this, which is tempos. Hunter at the moment is interesting. I've always liked Hunter as a class. It's just not been that good. With the exception of its 1 month with 2 mana Unleash, where it was really, really good. And for all the people who say that, oh, at least it's not Sunshine Hunter was dominant for a month. This metagame is 3.5 months old. Get over it. But anyway, Sunshine Hunter is still around, still an okay deck. But then they're adding more variants, like Web Spinner. I've already said the problems with Web Spinner, where it's just boring. It's a 1-drop. How interesting can you get a 1-drop to be ultimately? But Web Spinner adding so much variance to the game is actually not a good thing. You're gonna have games won by a Web Spinner, and that's just annoying. It's a 1-drop that wins the game sometimes. Like, you're gonna die to a King Crush randomly at some point that comes off a Web Spinner. It's just gonna happen. And I don't really like the direction it's taking Hunter in. I mean, I like that it was a beast. I really, really wanted a beast. I think I may have preferred a 2-drop beast to replace Croc, maybe. Like Death Rattle 2-drop, that would have been nice. But we've got Web Spinner now. So it's a bit awkward. It does mean that Hunter decks are getting a little weird. So I don't know. We've still got the Secret Core. The Secret Core for Hunter is actually better than any other class. I think they fit the class better than any of the other ones, apart from Ice Block. And they've got the bow and things like that. But I think the new beast is a little weird. I don't know. We'll have to see with the rest of the set, but it's a little too much variance. I mean, I've never been a fan of variance, but in the case of Animal Companion, at least it's 3. It's only 3 different outcomes, and you can kind of you can play around each different outcome, and it's interesting. But with Web Spinner, it's a bit weird, and that's sort of a direction I'm not a big fan of with the Hunter thing. So we've got Priest going in the right direction, we've got Hunter going in the wrong direction. It's a bit of an interesting interaction there, mostly because of the variance. I think that's actually a big deal. Dark Cultist has less variance on it, by far, than Web Spinner does, and I think solid cards are what you need solid cards in Hearthstone to sort of make it better. Like, when we have too much variance, we get what happened with Tinkmaster and that Pale, which was entire games being decided by random, RNG, and it was just crazy. But anyway, so Hunters are going in a bit of a weird spot right now. But anyway, the last thing I did want to talk about was tempo decks. Now, for anyone who has played tempo decks and against tempo decks, they're some of the funnest decks you will ever play against. And the main reason for this, against, not always with. Not everyone loves playing tempo. I mean, I love playing the tempo decks, but a lot of people like playing control, aggro, tempo, anything. Now, what is a tempo deck? A tempo deck is something that fights for board control for the entire game from turn 1 or 2 till the end of the game. And when they lose board control, they most likely lost the game because they don't have as much card draw, so they can't just build advantage in that way. And their entire game plan is focused on building board advantage and then killing your opponent. Good example of this, Tempo Rogue, playing Yetis, Spiteful Smiths, Defias Ringleaders, SI7s, things like that, Argent Squires. Perdition's Blaze, this is all interesting stuff. Colma is actually a guy on YouTube who does a lot of tempo stuff. He plays Tempo Warrior, he's the guy who came up with it, plays a lot of Tempo Rogue, things like that. I'll link his channel in the description along with the billion other things I said with this game. But anyway, so tempo decks, they do that kind of stuff. Now, Rogue Tempo has always been one of the most fun decks to play against, same with Warrior, because when you're playing as a tempo deck, you're not scared of burst. You're just trying to fight over the board position continuously, and you're not worried about dying from 90% of your life total, and this is a major, major difference. So you're just trying to play for board position continuously, and it's all about card advantage and board position. You get really, really engrossed in the game. It actually turns into a lot of fun. The problem is that they're just not good at the moment, and this is because there aren't as many neutral value creatures that we need. Like, if you look at all the value creatures that grind your opponent now, they're all class based. Mostly Druid, actually. Druid of the Claw, Ancient Allure, Ancient of War, Keeper of the Grove. They're all Druid. We've got a couple of other ones. Doomguard's a bit more of a rushy thing, but as far as the mid-rangey value creatures go, Yeti, Argent Commander, Azure Drake, ... Harvest Golem, I guess. But Harvest Golem fits a lot in the burst decks as well. But those are like the only four we really have. And there's a couple other ones I didn't mention, like Spiteful Smith maybe, but there's just not enough to contend with a lot of the bursty decks, because you can't just keep War Control, because you use your health as a resource in Tempo, and Warrior, and also in Rogue Tempo decks. You use your health as a resource. So I think that this sort of ties into the first point from this video, which was the bursty thing. Once the burst lowers down, if the game sort of becomes a little bit more stagnated in the mid game, I think tempo decks will come back, and I think those are a lot of fun to play against and with. Leads to a lot of exciting games of Hearthstone. Some of the most exciting games of Hearthstone you will ever see and sort of watch people commentate over are the ones which are really, really close in the board game, and then just sort of like people are fighting over and coming back and like losing board position and trying to keep going. Those are a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to play. And I'm really hoping that there is something I can do. I mean, I still think that adding disruption cards to the game, like if Loetheb, for example, is like a 3-mana 3/3 or something, just adding some sort of disruption to the game that you can use against combo decks would really, really help these tempo decks. And I think those are a lot. I think those would be really, really good for the game if those came back. So I'm really looking forward to see what they do with Nax in future adventures. But anyway, so those are all my points of sort of what is wrong with current Hearthstone, needs to change, and also some of the stuff they're doing right, like with the Dark Cultist thing from Priest, as I said, and in the case of figuring out some disruption, and in the case of like Kel'Thuzad replacing Ragnaros, basically, that's a very, very good thing. So there's a couple things they are doing very, very right in Nax. It looks amazing so far. I think Hearthstone is going to get better over time as more and more cards come into the game. At the moment, we're at a bit of a low point, but I think once Nax comes out, that we're going to get out of that, and I'm really looking forward to see what they can do with the game. It's a very, very fun game to play. I'm going to keep playing it pretty much no matter what, unless something horrible happens, which, I mean, I trust Blizzard enough to actually go forward with card design properly. But anyway, so that's just my opinion on what is wrong with the game at the moment. So just quick recap. Burst damage combos, life tap. Not the Warlock class, just life tap. Priest, Paladin, the problems with those classes, slight misdirection on the Hunter thing. Did I really use misdirection and a Hunter? Whatever. Slight misdirection on the Hunter thing, and also the tempo decks need to come back. That's what I'm just going to say on as far as this goes. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, put it in the comment section below. It really does help me out. And also about the news thing, or any show matches from the Acebreakers team, put that in the comments. I really would like to hear what you guys think about that stuff, and if you'd like to see it in the future. But as for now, this is Jotto, signing off.